In the Middle Ages, the skilled butcher played a crucial role in providing nourishment for the people. Delivering fresh quality meat was essential, especially for town and city dwellers. Today we continue our Day in the Life series and travel back in time to meet a 14th century medieval butcher and see what his life was like. So, you think you know everything about knights, castles, and kings? Well, hold on to your chainmail because we're starting a history channel all about the Roman Empire. Now, I know what you're thinking, wait, Roman Empire, isn't that before my favourite medieval legends? Well, yes, but stick with me. Rome is where it all started. From the fall of the mighty empire to the rise of your medieval knights, it's a story that's all connected. So if you're ready to learn about this incredible time period, join the toga party over at our new channel, The Roman Empire. It's going to be totally worth the detour in your historical journey, so I'll leave a link to it in the description below. And now for today's video, welcome to Medieval Madness. Meat merchants. In London, the Worshipful Company of Butchers has existed since as early as 975 and had the right to regulate the trade from 1331. Smithfield Market was set up in the 10th century and was always busy with shoppers. Every summer from the 12th century, Bartholomew's Fair was held there with jousts and tournaments to raise funds for the priory. In York, the Butchers' Guild was established as early as the 13th century, as it is mentioned in the Freeman's Rolls of 1272, then having 36 members, it included 2 butchers, named Robert Withenskirts and a Nicholas de Nunnock. The Shambles was a street of butchers' shops in York. The Butchers' Hall lay behind Shambles in Gelgarth. Shambles was a word that meant meat market or slaughterhouse, and there are many other Shambles or Shambles streets across the United Kingdom. In Dublin, there is even a Fishamble Street. The word is thought to be derived from the Anglo-Saxon fleshambles, which literally means flesh shelves used to describe the shelves that butchers used to display their meat. The Butchers' Guild would have influenced matters of hygiene, weights and measures, and the days when meat was restricted. The Catholic Church dominated society in medieval Europe, and there were many holy days throughout the year when the consumption of meat was not allowed. In 1303, the Charter of Mirepoix was signed in front of the Lord Jean de Levis, the lawmen, officials, and all the butchers of the French city. The contract was a bond between the authorities and the butchers of Mirepoix to ensure that they stuck to the rules when slaughtering and selling meat on their stalls and shops. There were 24 articles in the charter which included decrees that butchers had, quote, to fix the price of meats to ensure that they do not sell above the regulatory price. The charter also stated that, quote, no butcher will dare to sell Morano sheep affected by anthrax, mangy rams, nor sheep affected by scrapie, nor sheep sick with the plague, or dare to sell pigs, which are evidently and manifestly infected with leprosy. They were not allowed to sell goats, which were thought to spread illnesses like cholera and fever, but they could sell young venison of 1 year only, and they must sell only good, useful meats, free from all disease, that had entered the butchery or dwelling on their own feet, whether cattle, sheep, or pigs. The calendar when meat could be sold was also specified. In the Italian city of Verona, butchers were required to kill animals in their shops rather than their own homes. Most butchers' shops had an area at the rear for slaughtering animals. This was not possible if selling the meat from a stall, so there were public slaughterhouses available. Having the animal walk to the shop meant that the public could be confident in the health of the beast and the freshness of the meat. The Master Butcher. I live on Shambles, York, in the north of England. At the bottom of the street is St. Crux Church, to the east is the magnificent York Minster. My home is a timber-framed structure, tall and narrow. It has 2 stories, an attic and a cellar. The upper floors jetty out onto the street. There is an arched entrance at the side that leads to the Snickleway known as Widna Gate. The ground floor is taken up by my shop front with a kitchen behind. I sleep in the room above with 2 of the children. The eldest boy sleeps in the attic with my apprentice Tom. Space is tight. Sadly, my wife died after giving birth to our 4th child, so they are both with God now. Keeping cool. At the front of the shop window is a large wooden sill where I can display my cuts of meat, and there are heavy-duty hooks attached to the beams where I hang joints and carcasses. The street is very narrow, so narrow that when the women folk are on the upper floors they can reach across the street and touch hands. Keeping out the sunlight means that the shops are shaded and cool, and that's good for the meat, usually either pig, sheep, cow or poultry. Mutton is cut into shoulders and legs for roasts and stews. Cattle provide larger cuts such as ribs and sirloins. Pork is wonderfully versatile and provides dozens of cuts from bacon to trotters to chops. The tools of my trade are my chopping board, cleaver and saw. I also have the scales that I use with metal weights to carefully balance each portion and make sure that both the customer and I are getting a good deal. Tom is by my side every day honing his skills. I hope he too can have his own shop one day. No medieval butcher's toolkit is complete without a cleaver. With its heavy wide blade, it's perfect for splitting bones and large pieces of meat. Being heavy duty means it can cut through larger animals effortlessly. My skinning knife is also essential for removing the animal's skin. It needs to be small and super sharp so no damage is caused to the underlying flesh. I also use a saw to cut through any dense bones and stop them from splintering and spoiling the cut of meat. I keep all my tools razor sharp and use a whetstone every day to sharpen the blades. Many people bring their animals to market in the late autumn so they don't have to feed them over the winter months. It's the perfect time to buy cheaply and then use a method of preservation to extend the life of the meat. It can also enhance the texture and taste. I use several methods like coating larger cuts with rendered fat to seal in the moisture and slow down the rot, or brining, which involves soaking the meat in saltwater solution with herbs and spices. Some meats take better to being covered in salt to draw out the moisture, like venison, other game and pork. We sell every part of the animals, such as the tail, tongue, snout, ears, liver, and stomach. Nothing goes to waste. Feet and ears can be turned into jellies, and I use the bladder, intestines, and stomach to make casings for sausages. I am not a rich man, but we get by. It's not like being a baker where your products are eaten every day. The church has banned the eating of meat on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and throughout the whole of Advent and Lent. Added together, that means that people aren't allowed to eat meat for over half the year. It's a sin to eat meat on those days, and anyone who does will find themselves dragged up in front of the church court. Playing by the rules. The Craft Guild keeps a stern eye on us and controls the regulations. We have voting rights in the elections of the Lord Mayor, Alderman and Sheriff, but as we butchers are considered one of the lower of the 15 guilds, we only have one vote between us all, and that's given to the Senior Searcher. He is our top man and regularly comes round to check for any offences that we might have made. Penalties are high for any butcher who tries to sell putrid flesh meat. He can expect to be dragged through the streets of the city on a wooden panel tied to a horse. Then he'd be put in the pillory, and the piece of rotting meat that he was so intent on selling would be placed beneath his head and burnt so that he would have to breathe in the noxious fumes. Getting rid of the offal is a constant problem. The Franciscan monks made a great fuss about it one year, and we were told we couldn't throw any entrails in the river between the bridge and their friary because they use the water there for brewing and baking. William the butcher, who owns the shop next to mine, didn't care for the warning and dumped a cart full of offal upstream of the friary anyway. He was fined half a mark. The pavements have been raised on either side of the cobbles on the shambles. It has formed a sort of channel down the middle, and all the butchers go out twice a week with buckets of clean water from the river to swill the blood and guts away. I get Tom to do that job. He's a damn sight younger and fitter than me. We already had rules in place that meant offal had to be transported down to the river in a covered cart. If you were caught with the waste on show, you would be fined and have the cart confiscated as well. But King Richard II wasn't happy with that and brought in even more penalties for those who corrupted and infected the air by throwing out so much dung and filth of garbage and entrails, as well of beasts killed as of other corruption into ditches, rivers and other waters. It was getting to the point where a butcher feared for his livelihood. They'll be banning us from keeping pigs in the city next. Civic Pride. Tom and I have to get up early to find the best animals for sale at the market. Once we've walked them home, we take them to the slaughterhouse, which is at the back of the shops. Wearing our leather aprons, we either poleaxe the animal or slit its throat to kill it, depending on the size of the beast. Once the blood is drained, we skin the carcass and carry it across to the shop to be portioned up. Most of my customers are the richly dressed merchants or the esquires and their wives. They hardly ever come down here themselves though, and would rather send their servants. Those commoners who can afford a piece of meat usually buy the cheapest cut to throw in their stew pot at home with some vegetable and grains. There are no boys turning joints of meat and spits in their homes. Think of how much wood that would use up. During the mystery plays, all the craft guilds of York come together under the control of the religious Corpus Christi Guild, which has members of the highest ranks, both noble and ecclesiastical. There are almost 50 plays present on carts and wagons in the street for the people to see every summer. Each cart is dressed to tell Bible stories. Last year, we butchers followed in the procession down to St. Helens Square, where our play represented the mortification of the flesh and the burial of our Lord Christ. I was proud to play the part of Nicodemus, who helped Joseph of Arimathea to wrap Jesus' body in linen. Social animals. Meat is the favoured food of the rich. Many of the yeomen and townsmen like to buy meat as it makes them feel that they are a cut above the common folk, and they want to be seen to be living like the Lord Mayor, the Alderman, and the Bishop. Oftentimes, when a grand banquet is planned for a marriage or some such occasion, planning for the food begins months in advance, and beasts are brought into York from all across the country. Then they are pastured outside of the city walls until needed. Much of the game is brought in for us to slaughter and salt, sometimes as many as 300 fallow deer at a time. Other flesh might include oxen, sheep, boars, hares, rabbits, chickens, even porpoises, and they all need to be butchered. Some of York's wealthier citizens even have their own butcher who lives and works in their house, but I'd rather be my own boss here on the Shambles with Tom and my family. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Medieval Madness. Please do subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll see you next Friday for another one. Until then, hope everyone has an amazing week. Cheers!